Welcome to Trent Voices, the Trent University Alumni Affairs podcast, usually from Alumni House in Champlain College. I'm your host, Donald Fraser of Alumni Affairs, and this is a special Trent U Cares COVID-19 broadcast. Now, I say that we're usually at Alumni House, but of course, Trent University campus, like university campuses right across Canada, is responding to the need for physical distancing. So we're at home. But in response, we've decided to take the pandemic on head on and reach out to alumni to talk about the work that they're doing in their communities in response to the COVID-19 situation. How the virus is impacting their lives, how it's impacting their work, how it's impacting their careers. At the same time, we're talking to some of Trent's leading faculty about how they believe the Trent experience has helped prepare these grads for the work that they're doing today. And you can follow along this series of interviews by visiting trentu.ca/alumni or by following us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or LinkedIn. And again, you can visit trentu.ca/alumni for links to all of our social media channels. Now today, we're focusing on educators and the unique and really changing roles that they've taken on during the pandemic. We're welcoming Cathy Bruce, who's the Dean of the School of Education, Rich McPherson, a trained teacher and a communications expert with the School of Education, and Mitch Champagne, who is a part-time faculty member at Trent, but an elementary teacher in the Peterborough, Victoria, Northumberland, Clarington Catholic School Board. Folks, welcome.
Thank you.
Hey, Donald.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Now, for the sake of the folks listening at home, let's get to know each other a little bit better. I want to start with Cathy. You're the Dean of the School of Education, but you also have your own education specialties. Tell me a bit about your work and research.
Sure. So I do oversee the 5 main programs in the education department, and but I'm also a very active researcher. And my area of interest is how children learn mathematics. So I've been studying that for over 20 years, and a very exciting area of work.
Rich, you're also full time at Trent. What's your position? Lay that on us. It's a big one.
Sure. So I am the Knowledge Mobilization Education Coordinator. So that has a lot to do with our marketing and communications within the School of Ed, but I also do a lot of support for other areas at the university, and as well as being involved in some of the disseminating the research that our faculty do and helping them develop those pieces for conferences and events and those sorts of things. But I've also been at Trent for coming up to 18 years now, through multiple degrees in cultural studies and getting my BEd and MEd in the past year. So I'm a bit of a lifer. I've spent a lot of my time. I've done some time in the classroom in elementary. Now doing some part-time instruction in the School of Ed, but a lot of my work has been around creating multimedia-based resources for educators and students around Ontario.
And you're also one of those educators who has some young kids who are at education as well. So
I do. So it's I sort of have this Catholic guilt things. I always feel like I have that as a teacher at home if I'm not doing enough. There's that comes into play. But yeah,
Mitch. As I mentioned before, you're a part-time faculty member with the school, but you're also, your day job as an educator. What's your teaching situation like now?
This year, I'm currently teaching a grade 2 classroom. I'm normally teaching intermediate students, but this was the first year I went down into a primary class. So my day is spent trying to engage 19 young learners.
Wow. Okay, we're gonna get to how you do that in a second. Now that we've gotten to know each other, we'll dive in. And Mitch, this is your chance to shine, because I want to know how things are going. It's a whole new world. I mean, we went from things being perfectly normal to schools being closed and kids being at home, and then a slow rollout of the educational process and what that was going to look like for the province. How much of a challenge has it been as an educator for this?
Well, I mean, teachers tend to be flexible and adaptable by nature. No 2 days in the classroom are ever really the same. So in that sense, I think education as a whole is adapting and handling this very well. But we can't forget that it hasn't just been like it went from normal in-class instruction to knowing what was going to be happening and it being online. It was rolled out in 2 weeks at a time or 3 weeks or another extension. So I think that's the thing that has been the most difficult as a teacher to sort of get my head around was, how long is this for? Looking at what was happening around the world, you kind of got the sense that the year was over. Even whenever the classes were first closed following March break. But the fact that it was never really said, that's what kind of made it difficult, for me anyway. In terms of getting the students involved, I found it to be a new challenge, but it's been exciting. It's been a way to challenge myself to try to learn how to do things in a new way, in a way that makes the kids want to participate. Because when they're in the classroom with me, getting participation is a lot easier because they have to be there. They have no choice whether they're going to be there. And because they're there and they're grade twos, they're all eager to want to learn and they're all eager to want to try things out. But remotely, I just don't really know what situation they're all in at home. Everyone's got a different home life. So you're having to kind of adapt your lessons and your ideas so that everyone can participate.
Very cool.
Yeah, could I tag in there? Because
Sure.
What Mitch is saying is so important. He's doing his best to engage his students, and his students are, eagerly responding, which is, brilliant. But we do have some real disparities for some students who may not have access to technology, who may not have access to Wi-Fi. And I know that the local school boards around here, anyway, have done quite a bit of work to try and get computers into the laptops into the hands of students. They've turned their parking lots into Wi-Fi zones. They've done all kinds of things to try and help. And in fact, in some cases, materials are being delivered by mail or drop off to students' homes. So there's all kinds of strategies going on. But as Mitch says, it's been piecemeal, right? Because it hasn't been sort of this, we didn't have time to prepare. And as the COVID situation has evolved, so have the decisions around whether students would return or not.
And I'm wondering, Cathy, Mitch is looking at primary level kids. When you're dealing with high school level kids who have a bit more autonomy and who have also heard that their marks ultimately won't be affected by what happens this year, is there more difficulty, do you think, in keeping those kids, quote, in school?
I would say motivated students will stay motivated. And those students who are less motivated might not be as engaged. But it is interesting, talking to parents who say, talk about how they're trying to motivate their children or their students to stay engaged. We did start a tutoring program at Trent. So this is free tutoring to about 400 students in the community. And we are doing that through a student work study program. So the teacher candidates are getting paid for their time to tutor over the summer, which is great because it employs them. And it also gives those high school students, any students, that kind of one-to-one opportunity to talk with somebody else and to, look at their work together. And so we're hoping that that's a motivational strategy. Anyway, small in the sense that it's not across Canada or anything, but at least it's an effort.
That's great. I'm going to get back to the whole motivating thing in a second, because I think there's probably a lot of parents out there who are wondering if there's a secret to this, and so we'll talk a bit about that. But I still want to hear more about you folks. It's that home work life balance. We're all parents here. With varying different ages of kids at home. And a lot of parents have been finding it difficult to juggle that time working and providing care and providing rewarding day-to-day experiences. How's it been for you? We'll start with Rich. You're kind of like me. You're mostly business hours, unlike the educators who are a bit more free flowing. How have you found that balance as a parent and as a person with an education background?
It's been a learning process for myself, and I have spent a good chunk of my my career working from home. So it took me many years to kind of get into that sort of groove. So I'm not unfamiliar to what comes with that. But I think for myself and for a lot of people, first, very fortunate that we've been able to continue our jobs for myself and my partner. And not a lot of people have that opportunity. And so going into this, at least for myself, I think the expectations were high in terms of, okay, we're both home. Yes, we're working, but we're going to do this. We're going to stick to this schedule. We're going to do this and that. And I think for the first couple weeks, it was adjusting, but then we got into a good groove by week 3 and the kids were digging it. But then we just found ourselves getting tired and we weren't doing that. We would be tag teaming between, okay, you've got a meeting from 10 to 11, so I'll handle that. And then when you're done, I'll race downstairs and we'll switch off. We did that for a short time, but then it just got tiring. And it got tiring just because we put so much on ourselves, so many expectations on our own selves to want to spend so much time with our kids doing academics. And as a teacher, that's where that guilt piece I mentioned at the beginning, I was like, oh my goodness, I should be doing a lot more. I've got all these resources and access to things. But all of that was irrelevant because there was just so much else going on in our lives that we're trying to manage that. Those expectations really started to wear us down. And we just started to kind of check in with each other each day and figuring out like, okay, what is okay? What is the appropriate amount of screen time that we can give our kids? Because we had to keep telling us at the end of the day, for us, again, we're lucky enough that we're working, but we have to work. So we can't just stop and go down and do real academic learning with our kids. We just can't. And so for the times that we were able to, whether that was coming together at lunchtime and in the afternoon when some things cleared and we were able to maybe do things in the evening, we made sure that we did that. And the biggest thing we did was just getting outside, and whether that was on our front, on the sidewalk, and chalk work all over the place, and biking and rollerblading, or just going for walks. Just going for a walk around the neighborhood and see what's going on. That has sort of just become we don't really have a routine anymore. We just kind of take advantage of the moments that we have when we have them. And it's a lot of communication between my partner and I of saying, you know what, it's okay. Don't be so stressed out that we're not doing this. Our kids are young. One's a grade 2 and a JK. They're going to be okay. They're a lot more resilient than we are at their ages right now. They're going to be okay. And so I think now that we're coming into 2.5, 3 months, or wherever we're at here, we're sort of letting some of that go and just saying, you know what, it's okay to play with our kids, get into life skills, and just be with each other and work on those relationships. And so that's where we've had this real ebb and flow of how things have gone for us. But at the end of the day, we've got to work. And there's a lot of families out there who are struggling to work, and so that's a whole other layer. And people who are essential workers who don't have the affordances that we have, right? So and it's recognizing those things as well. That everyone's dealing with these challenges, and our challenges is just that we're putting too much expectation on ourselves.
What Rich just said is what I would call the ABC method. So A is for active, get outside. B is for balanced, try and do something independent and have your kids do something independent and do something together that you enjoy together. And the C is for casual. Like, look, this is 4 months in our lives. For those kids, it's 4 months. We need to stay calm. We need to have some fun. We need to do what we can without getting overly stressed. There's so much mental health issue potential here, and we need to be very careful about overburdening children and parents and teachers.
And it's refreshing. It's refreshing to hear from a parent and an educator that about how resilient our kids are, particularly the younger ones. And I think that's a really good reminder for parents as well. Take a time out and take a look at your kid and compare how they're doing to how you're doing, and maybe get a lesson there. I'm not sure. Mitch, you're not in the classroom, so your day is obviously different than it was 3 months ago. How are things? How's that work-life balance at your place?
Pretty similar to what was described by Rich, actually. I'm, participating in this podcast on my front porch right now because it's the place I thought I could probably find the most amount of peace at home. So I'm very fortunate that my wife and I, we've got 4 beautiful kids. So we've got a very loud and busy household. So the balance is trying to keep my own kids working while making sure that I'm doing the job I have to do to support the students in my classroom. And without my wife, Christine, this just wouldn't be possible. It wouldn't be possible. So some of my peers and colleagues don't have the same situation I have. Maybe their partner is an essential worker and is gone. Maybe they're a single mom or a single dad. And their struggle would be that much more difficult than mine is. But being a parent is really helping me understand better what I need to be providing for my students in my classroom. So I'm using a Google Classroom format, which many teachers are, and I'm posting all my work on Monday morning. The whole week's work is laid out, so my students have a chance to look at it, to plan, to make their decisions onto what they want to work on today, what tomorrow. They're supposed to be doing about 5 hours of work a week. And I'm posting more than that with an introduction saying, it's up to you to pick and choose what you want to do. You've got your own situation at home. Some of you have a lot of help from an older sibling or a parent. Some of you are doing this independently. So I'm providing opportunities where students can pick and choose what they're able to do. And I just have to understand that that's where they are. While I might post 15 or 20 hours worth of work, it's a very wide-ranging amount of work that much of it is independent. I'm seeing my own students log into Classroom, and I'm very appreciative whenever there's a task that they can just sit down and do.
Yeah.
It's terrible, but like being a father and a teacher, I want to be there helping them, and my wife's the same way. My wife's also a teacher. She would like to be able to help them, but we can't be with 4 kids at the same time, and we can't be caring for ourselves at the same time. So we're taking pretty much the same approach that Rich is taking and that Cathy alluded to. We're trying to find a balance every day and throughout the week. We're trying to make sure our kids are happy and engaged, and moving forward from there.
And Mitch, I will just jump in and say, because I don't know how often you hear it, but you are doing a great job and keep it up. Because I've said that to my kids' teachers as well, that even though I'm an educator at home with my own kids, the pieces that they give to me, whether you're giving 20 hours or whatever, I take those little bits. They help so much that I use because then I don't have to think and sit down and plan, and I don't have that time to do that. So it's as I tell them, everything that they're doing, I so greatly appreciate it. So appreciate what you're doing.
Kudos.
Thank you. I just want to clarify that I'm providing more work than necessary.
Yes.
Not because I expect the students to do more than that. I just want to make sure that there's something accessible for everybody. A lot of that might simply be, log into Khan Academy and do these 3 or 4 lessons, or get a quarter and get a roll of dice and play around with probability. So I want them to be able to have something that they can do on their own.
And the way that I see this, first of all, with you, Mitch, you are offering more material that is necessary, which in the long run is going to help keep kids engaged because they're not limited to one thing that they may or may not want to do. Cathy, you bring up the variety with the ABC approach, and so my question here, both of you are already kind of offering opportunities for kids to remain more engaged, but I'm wondering, as educators, if there are any other I don't want to say tricks, but any other techniques to keep your students engaged from a distance? We'll start with Mitch, and then we're gonna jump over to Cathy afterwards.
I just want to mention the importance of trying to maintain community, because our students are missing their friends, they're missing their peers and classmates and their teachers. So I've been really trying to focus on ways to build community, and while the Ministry of Education have told us that we should be focusing on literacy and numeracy, I'm trying to add in other sorts of things that are going to engage students and are going to make them want to contribute and be part of their classroom. One thing that's been pretty successful, I created this slideshow, Google slideshow that's open to anyone in my school, and I'm calling it the weekly Lego challenge, for instance. Yeah. So, on the Monday morning, I'll say, this week's challenge is to build an amazing animal or a rocket ship or your dream home or whatever it is. And I'm having all the teachers at my school post in their own classrooms and make that same slideshow available. So they have that week to build something, get creative, post it to the slideshow, add their first name and their grade, and then other students from other classrooms get to see the work, get to leave comments on their work, and sort of create that community that we have. The school I'm at right now at Immaculate, I would say out of all the schools I've worked at, we have the greatest sense of community. We do things as a school. We have dance parties and we do yoga and we practice for cross country as a school and all these great things. And I'm trying to find ways to keep that going.
And it's so huge because we are in isolation, and kids aren't spending the time that a lot of their parents are, stuck in 5 Zoom meetings a day, and finding those abilities to make the process human is really important and really noble. So thanks, Cathy. Some ideas for educators. How do you keep these kids going? We're getting into the dog days of the school year. It's June.
For sure, and I think Mitch is right on the same path. I was going to talk about community building, but I'll add another layer in there, and that's around wellness checks. Like just having an opportunity to say to the students in your class, hey, how's it going? Let's just see if we can connect in and see how you're doing. It makes a huge difference. I know, again, parents that I'm talking with whose teachers are doing those periodic wellness checks, the students want to see each other. They want to be in that community, or they want to hear each other, or they want to have a chance to chat, whatever it may be, whether it's in Google Meet or whatever other platform. And so just, it's showing that you care about them, and teachers do care about their students so much. And I think that students really appreciate that moment. Actually, I was talking to a parent the other day she said to her son, so I hear you have, I don't know if it was Zoom or whatever, let's just say it was a Zoom meeting. I hear you have a Zoom meeting with your class. What are you going to wear? And he said, what do you mean? What am I going to wear? And she said, well, it's like you have to get dressed and, you should have what would you wear to school? Mm-hmm. And where are you going to sit? What do you mean? Well, you're not going to be in your bedroom. So where are you going to, all of the netiquette that went around it was really interesting to hear. But he was excited to talk to his classmates, and he was excited to talk to his teacher. So just a basic wellness check is another, just a point of communication and support.
Okay. I would also just say, Donald, from my perspective, and not all parents are the same in how they go about these things, but they might be kind of leery in terms of how they present the current situation to their kids. But I think you need to be transparent with your kids about what's going on. You're putting a lot of stress on yourself if you're not, and trying to create a show of why this is happening and why you're at home. And I think that whole, we see the hashtag of in this together, and might have issues with that. But if we do talk to our kids about what's going on, so they are aware, we will be in this together, and they will understand that when they go back to school eventually, how it's going to be and how it's going to be different, and it's not going to be a shock. I'm still kind of, it takes my breath away to see my son go up and down the street, and there's other kids that they're acquaintances on the street that they might just kind of talk to here and there. But some of those kids who are older than him have no idea what's going on, really, or have been told that, hey, keep that little distance there, and haven't been told that. And I'm just like, I don't know why. I struggle with that because I think the kids need to know what's going on. You don't have to strike fear into them, of course. You can be gentle about it, but with our kids knowing what's going on, and even our littlest, who's a JK, and it, she'll try and say the word coronavirus, and it's cute out of her mouth, even though it's not cute, and what's happening with it. But she's aware. And she understands her boundaries, and she understands what she needs to do. And I think that there's a little level of that helps them cope with moving forward, of knowing that it's different. We're going to do the best we can. Things are going to be different. We're not going to have a routine like we used to. Mm-hmm. And I think that by letting them in makes their lives and our lives as parents and educators a little easier.
Now you're doing a great job of doing some life lessons right there as well. But as a parent and an educator, we also know that we got to keep the education train moving at home. Rich, what have you been doing to keep your kids engaged in the process?
I think, the biggest thing is, we talked about losing the routine a bit, and I kind of had a wake-up call when we fell out of the routine a bit, and then we tried to sit back down and do it, and it just didn't happen. A lot of emotions came out. And they felt challenged about doing the work because they hadn't been doing it regularly. So I think we're easing back into a little bit each day, and finding that time, whether it's after our lunchtime or before dinner. One of us is maybe preparing dinner, the other one is sitting down, and we're looking at just some activities that our teachers have given us. Is that sitting down with a worksheet or reading a book, just pulling out a book and reading and talking about just those things that we have access to at home that you don't need a lot. Just those simple things, and I think that's what we're doing, and it's helping with our own peace of mind that we are getting those pieces in. So yeah.
I just want to say, like, when kids are outside and they're playing or whatever they're doing, they are learning.
Yeah.
Like there's school learning and there's life learning, and sometimes those intersect really well. But what is available to kids right now is a whole world of backyards and what have you that has all kinds of learning pieces to it, including family time and alone time, and being resourceful on your own when your parents can't help you. Those are all really important parts of the bigger picture of learning.
Yeah, exactly. Mitch, you've got your hands full over there with 4. How do you keep that train going at home?
Well, I'm going to let you in on a little secret here. It actually gets easier if you have a whole bunch of kids, right? If you have one, it's on you. You're the entertainment, right? So I'm lucky. I've got 4 kids. My 2 oldest are girls. I've got an 11-and-a-half-year-old and a 9-year-old. They're best friends. They keep each other pretty occupied. They do learning together. They do playing and sharing and all sorts of fun stuff. Then I've got 2 boys, an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. And once again, they keep each other busy. So, I really try to leverage the resources I have in my house, right? So the older siblings teach to the younger siblings. Mm-hmm. Whenever my youngest, my SK has some homework to do, he's doing it with his older brother or one of his older sisters. And likewise for everybody else. And that's a good strategy because, as I'm sure Cathy and Rich will tell you, we learn best by teaching, right? So, you learn a little bit by reading or watching, and you learn a little bit more by doing. But when you can get to the point where you're actually showing someone else how to do something, you're learning something in a much more deep way than you thought you ever could any other way. So, I'm starting also to see elements of my children's personality come out that I didn't know were there. I can see that my kids are very patient with their younger siblings, and that makes me very happy. Once again, I just recommend parents just to use the resources around them.
Yeah, and and Donald just say keep that train going. It's just funny as just thinking about, okay, we've got a month left of school before summer break comes, and we've sort of just talked about why are we going to stop? Let's keep keep a little bit going throughout the summer. Just keep that little bit going, because there are going to be those kids that it's going to take a lot for them. Those who do struggle academically, when they go back to school, it's going to be really hard for them to get back into it. So I think that if parents have those learners at home that need a little bit more help with engagement, it's important to kind of keep a little bit of that going and not lose it completely, because they've already lost a little bit of that with these 3 months and then another 2. And I think it'd be important to keep a little bit of that going.
Wonderful. As educators, obviously you couldn't prepare for this. No one saw it coming. But what have you done to prepare yourself for this? I mean, you've been at this now for almost 3 months. You got a month to go. How do you build yourself up to it? What do you draw on to keep this going? Let's start with Mitch.
I think staying on top of trends in education is an important first step. So, while there is a large population of teachers that were starting to transition to online teaching and learning for the first time, or had already dipped a toe in, I was already pretty well immersed in that world. So even with my grade 2 students, it was pretty easy to pivot to a different platform. So, staying current helps. But I think what's even more important than that is just to have an open mind and to not expect things to work out perfectly the first time or maybe even the 5th time. We're all kind of learning. So, having an open mind, be adaptable, be flexible, don't be too hard on yourself when things don't go well, and realize everyone is learning. And I think putting that stance forward in your classroom with your students, whether it's in front of them or virtually, it makes it okay to do something wrong. It makes it okay to make a mistake, and keeps the students, gives them the confidence to try something new without the fear of failure.
I want to kind of flip this on its head when asking Cathy this question. Cathy, what does the School of Ed do to prepare their students who become teachers to be prepared for this? The unknown.
Yeah. It's a really good question, and my head is in this, all the time right now. What are we doing to prepare teacher candidates, aspiring teachers, for what lies ahead for them in probably the next, who knows how long, 3 years, or longer, right? Or maybe it's a full change, permanent, right? But I think part of it is remembering that the fundamental qualities of a good teacher are the fundamental qualities of a good teacher, whether they're working in a remote environment or in person. And you can hear from Rich and Mitch, like some of the, the skills that they have. It doesn't matter if it's in person or online, they're going to be amazing teachers, right? So there's that piece. So we always want to focus on those fundamental skills of being a, engaging, knowledgeable, thoughtful, inquiry-based teacher. That's sort of like fundamental. But on top of that, there's some real technical kind of issues coming up. For example, what happens in the fall if the schools are not open and our teacher candidates need to have placements? What does that look like? What kinds of things might they be able to do to support teachers in their work? And that actually turns out to be kind of an exciting conversation. For example, could we help prepare the teacher candidates to know how to run literature circles so they can meet with 5 students at a time with a very specific piece of reading or novel or whatever it may be, and guide them through thinking about that text and reading and sharing the love of that text together? Or could the teacher candidate lead a small group on solving math problems, and working with that small group to kind of guide them and support them in that inquiry. So I think it turns out there's some really interesting possibilities, but it does change too the way we think about what's most important. So in a remote environment, one of the most important things is engagement, not so much classroom management, which is something that's more in that classroom environment, but more about how are we interacting with the students one-to-one, in small groups, and so on. Anyway, so those are some of the things we're just really tackling now, and I at first I thought, oh boy, this is going to be too much. But actually, it's been a really engaging conversation. I'm looking forward to, seeing the innovations that our faculty generate through this process.
I want to stick with you for just another minute here. The School of Education recently celebrated their 15th anniversary. Tell me a little bit about the significance of that.
Well, I would say this very proudly, and I can say it because I'm the dean. We have an incredible program, and we turn away more applications than you could believe. We have a very strong program. Lots of people want to come to Trent to do their education degree because of the reputation of our faculty, the small class sizes, and our focus on social justice, on Indigenous education, on supporting learners with special needs. All of those kind of core pieces to our work have made us stand out. So, I'm just so proud of being the dean at Trent in the School of Education, and I'm so honored to work with the faculty there and our teacher candidates who are, exceptional. Our teacher education stream and our master's programs too. It's just a joy every day.
And I just want to piggyback on that and say that back to the kind of that question about what, how does our program maybe prepare our students for situations such as this? And I think that aside from being privileged to be on such a beautiful campus and our instructors taking our classes outside all of the time, and Mitch does that. He does amazing things with our students at Trent. It's also the sense of community that Trent instills in its students, especially in our BEd program, because we're a little smaller, and you really get to know everybody. And that sense of community, I think, really carries on beyond when you talk to our associate teachers who take on our Trent teacher candidates. Some of them will say that, man, the Trent teacher candidates just have such a good head on their shoulders for the situations around them, and having opportunities to be involved in alternative settings, placements that are within the community of Peterborough, and working with the community. It just builds such a well-rounded individual and educator going into it. So I think that those people going into this next phase of whatever that's going to be in the fall, it's not only the pieces of like what activities can we do outside and those types of things, but it's also just I think the empathy towards their students and the situations that they're grappling with. And I think that for those educators that maybe always have really high expectations, they're also going to be a little tempered a little bit more when they go back in, and a little bit more, it's okay. It's okay that we're here, and it's okay that that your emotions might be getting the best of you, or it's challenging. And so I think we kind of help kind of instill that in some of our teacher candidates who come to us with that. But I think that they certainly learn a lot more.
I hear the word "it's okay," and it makes me think of my summation question here. You folks are all educators, and you're all parents. But in this strange new world, anyone who's got a parent at home right now is a parent educator. And I'd like to sum up by asking you each, a final word of advice for these parent educators who are at home. We'll start with you, Mitch. You're in the classroom, so you're our freshest.
Well, I guess what I've been telling my my students and in emails to the parents of the students in my classroom is to just to take care of yourself and to take care of each other. I mean, the most important thing is to be content. So, do the work you can do, but just use this time to be together. In terms of small things that they can do, whenever I'm, giving them this big list of work to do, I'm asking them, choose something that has to do with reading and writing every week. Choose something that's focused on math, and then get outside. Spend as much time outside as you possibly can. Write about it, read about it, do an activity, or just do some exploring. So those are the three things I'm asking of my students every week.
Good. Rich?
For us, I think, pre all of this, we were always very friendly to our community when we go out for walks. But I think we've become a little bit more friendly in terms of, even though we're walking away from each other and not getting close when we're on the sidewalk walking the dog, we make more eye contact, and we do those hi, how are you, and do those small check-ins with complete strangers. And I think that's really important, because there's a lot of people who are not being seen out there. And so if we can do that, just by going for a walk with our kids and doing those sorts of things, and simple things like we pick up rocks and we paint little happiness rocks and put colors and put nice little words on them and put them all around the neighborhood. Right. And those are little things that we do that keep a smile on our face, and it must be keeping a smile on other kids' face, because they keep going missing. So someone out there is happy because they're getting these nice little happiness rocks. So, I mean, I think it's a sense of building community, and that's an easy, free thing to do when you're outside, seeing your neighbors and strangers and people in your community.
Dr. Cathy Bruce, your kids are a bit older now, but I think you probably still have some wisdom that you can impart.
And I have some at home right now because they're laid off. But I guess I would say, if I were talking to parents and students about this, is try and do something each day that matters to you, that's independent, that you're doing for yourself, by yourself. And then try to do something each day with somebody else, whether it's a meal or painting a rock, so that you have that connection with someone in your COVID circle, in your family circle.
I'm going to say this. This is the second interview that we've done. The first interview that we did was with nursing grads and with Dr. Kirsten Wooden, the Dean of the Trent Fleming School of Nursing. And at a number of points during that conversation, it was a pleasure to watch people on the screen with smiles on their faces, and really embracing the relationships that they have with their fellow grads and their fellow faculty. And today, it's the same thing. We're walking away feeling a lot better than we probably were at the beginning of this conversation. And so I think that's a testament to Trent, to the faculty, to the grads, to the spirit of Trent. So I want to thank you all for your enthusiasm and for making us all feel a little bit better.
Thank you, Donald. It was fun.
And thanks for the interview. Once again, I'm Donald Fraser of Alumni Affairs. This has been Trent Voices. Thanks for listening. Again, you can follow this interview series. This is going to be going on for a while. You can follow it at trentu.ca/alumni. And again, on our social media channels, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, we're on them all. Again, just go to the website and we will hook you up. Once again, this has been Trent Voices, and we'll talk to you soon.